Responsible people would have to wonder how responsible representatives, hearing such a proof, and yet in turn leaning toward a wholly unqualified, mere assertion of a multitude of solutions, we would have to wonder how responsible, capable representatives would not, having open channels to do so, at least consult with the original author of such a proposition, particularly if he was likewise the author of the only computer models in the world which did the math, and which even accurately projected the time of the inevitable failure 25 years ago. No such questions were even forthcoming. Representation simply decided without qualification and without even a defensible argument that there are multiple solutions: solving inherent irreversible multiplication of artificial indebtedness into terminal artificial indebtedness, and solving circulatory inflation and deflation as obviously only the obligatory schedule of payment in mathematically perfected economy can. How otherwise can we maintain a circulation which at all times is equal to the remaining value of represented property, but by paying and retiring principal at the rate of consumption or depreciation of the related property? No one has ever demonstrated, and no one ever can demonstrate, an alternate solution, for nothing but that obligatory schedule of payment of mathematically perfected economy can maintain perpetually consistent ratios of circulation and remaining value of represented property. Yet the mere unqualified thought of an already disproven proposition of multiple solutions was not only to prevail in merely asserting multiple solutions. Sufficient comfort in that lack of fact was sufficient to abandon discussion with the very author of the only actual solution. So of course I was very disappointed in Brigida. But if we are ever to resolve these issues, we the people will muster our innate abilities to understand far better, especially when understanding requires little more than diligent listening and reasonably critical thinking. Fortunately, my mere mentioning of these doomed, unfruitful discussions and Max Egan's interview raised the questions of a further, more diligent Icelander, Thorarin Einarsson. Thor asked serious questions and took a far more serious responsibility for the fate of Iceland. We enjoyed several serious, relatively exhaustive discussions, and, with some lapse owing to circumstances, have maintained occasional communication ever since. Thus, if Iceland is to enjoy solution, it will have much to thank Thor Einarsson and IFRI for. So, what are these discussions about to amount to, and why broadcast this initial meeting to generic popular interest? The latter is the most important question, for every country in the world is in dire need of a fact of solution. And only the transition to mathematically perfected economy, which we are about to explain, can immediately and justifiably relieve every suffering country and people from the artificial circumstances of the present unfolding failure. As we have shown in our previous programs, it is the people of the world who must establish solution. For if every government of the world did not deny its people representation, obviously then every representative government would long ago have established mathematically perfected economy. So it is only by this mandate for mathematically perfected economy and absolute consensual representation that we will do so. The mandate itself is a proof not only of singular solution, but of the severest crimes against us. In effect, then, the people of every country will find that they too have to exercise this mandate as their one opportunity and means for saving their country. Thus, a further vital reason for broadcasting this initial meeting to generic popular interest is that in understanding how Iceland's situation reflects our own, we realize that we are compelled to give Iceland our fullest support. For to abandon Iceland in its vital recognition of the only means and reasons which can serve Iceland, in fact, we abandon ourselves. Our support of Iceland is indispensable to the world itself, clearing the hurdles before us. Yet a further reason to broadcast this initial meeting is to demonstrate to every equally ailing people, to France, to Greece, to Italy, to Ireland, to England, to Europe and Asia at large, to every continent of the world, to demonstrate a straightforward pattern for engaging in fruitful discussion of this long-standing proposition of singular solution, and its prescription for immediate and virtually costless conversion of any pretended economy which has been imposed upon the world into mathematically perfected economy. What we need to understand is that each country of the world is something like a bird which has had erased from its genetic fabric the very understanding of how to fly. As a people, to construct that indispensable understanding, we are much like designers of a first craft capable of flight, except that the craft has already been designed. 40 years before we engage in this development, only after we crash in a desert, owing to a fatal flaw of an aircraft which would inevitably crash in that desert, our task is not to fix that craft with a fatal flaw, which we are only fortunate to so far have survived. Our task is instead to eradicate from its parts and design the fatal flaw. In the pattern of our potential response to an inevitable failure of a lie of economy, we are not to resolve the vital issues by merely reacting to a fact that in its end the fatal aircraft was facing downward, that its engine or engines failed, that its gear could never save us from a fatal impact with the desert. Beneath all this, was a greater, less obvious issue of the fundamental flaw of the doomed craft, which flaw itself resulted in taxing the remainder of the design as could never withstand the consequences of the fundamental fault. Essentially then, particularly if a solution already exists, and particularly if we the people depend on immediate recognition and establishment of that solution, the job of any resultant initiative before it engages in further development of a prospective solution or solutions is either to recognize or to invalidate the very existing proposition of solution, which itself predicted the fatal crash of the doomed craft in its very proof of a fact of singular solution. Why? Because if indeed there is one and one only solution, then no compromise, no travail of in-charged committees, no preservation of the fatal cause, nor any preservation of its resultant injustices can truly serve us. Worse, the compromising of irrefutable arguments compromises our very chance to prevail in solution against governments bent on denying us representation. What are these discussions about to amount to then? They amount to an example of the path we ourselves need to follow. Hello, Thor. How you doing?
Yes, hello. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you great. How about you?
Okay.
Do you hear me all right?
Yes, very good. And there are four of us here.
All right. Well, hello to everyone. Mike Montagne here.
Hi there. Should we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, maybe we should introduce ourselves.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm Thor.
I'm Guðmundur. Jörmundur Ingi.
Stefania.
Okay.
Well, hello to everyone. I guess Thor is closer to the microphone. I heard Thor just perfectly fine. The rest of you were faint in the background. I hope you can hear me all right. If you have any questions as we go along, I think we're going to have to either pass the microphone around or headset or whatever we have here and speak directly into it. I had a difficult time hearing the rest of you. Sorry for that.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll just move it around the mic.
I barely heard that as well.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I need to have it.
That's
very
working
close.
good. I hear you. I hear
Okay.
you well now.
Okay, I see. So, have you checked our points?
Actually, I've given them considerable time already. In fact, I decided. And please don't misunderstand that I'm meaning to assume some position of authority that I might, recommend what Iceland do to resolve its issues. My position is instead that the whole world has an interest in the quality of the resolution that Iceland eventually arrives at. And my 40 years of monetary reform work provide a background for me to basically